And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on air host, Sara DiVello, and I'm so excited to welcome back, live from London, the amazing Nadine Matheson, here to give us the inside scoop. She's going to spill the tea, British style, on the latest installment in her Detective Inspector Angelica Henley series, The Binding Room. Nadine, welcome back. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much for having me back, firstly. And The Binding Room, which I have here. So it came out on Thursday in the UK, but tomorrow, USA and Canada, it will be ready. So, so The Binding Room is book 2 in the Inspector Henley series. And it starts when a pastor is found murdered in his church. He's been stabbed multiple times. And when Henley and Remuta are sent to the crime scene, Henley discovers a hidden room. And in the hidden room, she finds the body of a man tied to a bed who's been tortured. So it turns out he may have been the victim of a ritualistic killing. And then there's another victim. So it's a matter of whether Henley and Remuta and the serial crime unit can find out who's been committing these tortures before another person's murdered. So that is The Binding Room in a nutshell.
Ooh, in a delicious nutshell. And I can't wait to get deeper into that nutshell, to crack that nut wide open, because we've got a lot to talk about, Nadine. But first, I just want to welcome everyone who's watching. So we're broadcasting live to 6 different destinations, as we always are. So no matter where you're watching from, Facebook, YouTube, you're in the right place. This is the right time. It is Mystery Monday. Thanks for hanging out, because Mondays can be murder. I want to welcome Gail, I want to welcome Shari, welcome Irma, welcome Janet, welcome Anissa. Anissa saying hello, Sara and Nadine. Anissa, thanks for joining us. Sharon saying hi from Minnesota. Sharon, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Yay. So Nadine is joining us live from London, where she is a barrister, a lawyer in American English. And so Nadine, let's start there. How has your experience as a criminal barrister informed your writing of the series?
Well, for me, I've always done defense law, so I've always specialized in criminal defense. So for me, writing a detective series, a police procedural, I've had to switch my brain around and think like a detective and think like a prosecutor. But I think that's been fun for me, because I've now been able to switch to the other side. But I've got all the legal experience in terms of the criminal law background. But for me, with this book, The Binding Room, because it involved exorcisms, and that sounds a little bit on the spiritualistic side of it, but in London, in the UK, a few years ago, there were quite a few of exorcism cases where people were being accused of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm, because they were attempting to exorcise demons from their friends and partners and family members' bodies. So it wasn't a case that I worked on, but it was a case that I'd heard about and read a lot about. So that's what inspired me to write The Binding Room.
Exorcism. Yikes, Nadine. Yes. And you don't shy away from really getting in there on these, serial killers, on this violence. But in your day-to-day life, you'd be defending these criminals. Is this true?
Yeah, no, definitely. In my day-to-day life, I would have been defending these criminals, but I've never defended a serial killer. I've never defended anyone accused of attempting to exorcise demons from someone. So I might be kind of like living out my fantasy dream client by writing these books.
Okay, Nadine, you just put it out there to the universe. Now I feel like you've just invited it. Oh my God, I'm terrified. I'm literally terrified.
I'm going to attract them to me now.
They're traveling to you. Yeah, it's fascinating to go from the defense mindset, defending the accused criminal, the accused murderer, to the investigators. I absolutely love it. I love this character. I love DI, Detective Inspector Angelica Henley. Yeah. She's so lovable. And tell us about her.
Well, she is lovable, but I think like all of us, she's got flaws. She's not perfect. And I never wanted her to be perfect, because none of us are like that in real life. I mean, hopefully none of us have as many issues as Henley has, but she got a lot of them from the Jigsaw Man, dealing with Olivier. But I said she is flawed, but she's so committed, and she's smart, and she I said, she's enthusiastic about her work, and she's always determined to do the best for the victim. She knows it's not about her, but as again I said, she's flawed. You know, she's a mother, she's a wife, she's not in the best of marriages, and she's doing her best to try and balance, you know, her personal life and her professional life. And sometimes she doesn't, well, not sometimes, a lot of the time she doesn't actually get it right. And you know, those who have read the Jigsaw Man know that she's got her little love triangle going on with Felicia in the office.
She does indeed. She does
She does.
indeed. And yet somehow we are still rooting for her.
Absolutely.
And yes, and we are not the only ones. Number one New York Times bestselling author AJ Finn, author of The Woman in the Window, gave this book a rave review. Let's check that out. AJ raved that Matheson's voice is exciting, urgent, and now more than ever vital. Congratulations on that rave review. Yay. So if you're watching from a private Facebook group today, you can stay mysterious. This is Mystery and Thriller Mavens after all, or you can let us know your identity. We have one mystery guessing. They are so excited to read this.
I'm glad.
Yay. I am too. Let us know if you read the first book of the series or if you're new to this. And actually, Nadine, that was one question that was submitted in advance. Someone wanted to know, should they start with the first book or can they jump right into the binding room and then go back to the Jigsaw Man?
You can actually read this one as a standalone. I mean, there'll be references to little things that have taken place in the Jigsaw Man, but you can read the binding room as a standalone. I mean, that's how I wrote it. But obviously, once you've read it, you're going to be like, I need to go back and read the Jigsaw Man to find out more about Henley and more about what's been going on in her lives and the lives of the members of the serial crime unit, and who's this Olivier that keeps popping up now and again throughout the binding room.
Exactly. Now, when you were on last time, you talked about Olivier. You wanted to create the serial killer who was also a charming person, which I have been thinking about for a year and a half, Nadine. Tell us about your desire to create a charming, likable serial killer.
Well, charming, when I was creating Olivier, charming's not an easy thing to write about, because people will always, when they meet someone, they'll always say, oh, you know, he was charming or she was charming, but there was just something about them. But, you know, putting that into words is actually hard. So for me, it was all about how Olivier interacted with people and his ability to switch, and, you know, the different relationships he had with different characters in the book. But I loved writing him. He was fun. I liked having that whole personality switch of, you know, charming someone and effectively seducing them 1 minute, and then on the next page, well, you might be dismembering them.
Okay, we're learning a lot about Nadine today.
Yes, you are.
A lot here. And if you've been here before, you know how this goes. Feel free to ask Nadine any questions that you'd like to know about her process, about this character, about writing a series. And Nisa would like to know, Nadine, what did you learn from writing your first book, The Jigsaw Man, that helped you to write the second book, The Binding Room?
Oh, I think most important. It is a great question, because you always have second book syndrome. You always think, is it going to be as good as the first book? But I think the main thing I just kept reminding myself was, just tell the story. Don't get caught up in, you know, different entanglements and different subplots. Just write the story that you want to write, and that's what I focused on for the first draft. So when subplots materialize out of nowhere, and there is a very special subplot in the binding room, when that materialized, I didn't let it throw me off course. So it was just get to the end, and once we've got to the end, then we can start working on the redrafts and the edits. But I think the first draft just showed me also the importance of characters and making sure they're fully multi-dimensional. So like I said earlier, it's, you know, Henley should be someone you want to go for a drink with. Olivier would be someone, you know, you're intrigued by, and he doesn't come across as a flat, cliched stereotype of a serial killer. And the same in this book. I mean, there's a character in this book, it's no spoiler, a character called Serena, and she will antagonize you, but in a good way, because you'll be fully invested in her. So that's one thing I learned. You know, make sure my characters are full-bodied.
Nadine, let me ask you, in your process, because I'm interested in this sort of enhanced focus on character, did you, in the execution of creating that deeper character, did you do anything differently, or you just wanted to go in more?
I just wanted to go in more because I think sometimes I can hold myself back a little bit with maybe how a character's feeling emotionally, not how they respond physically to a situation, but how they're dealing emotionally. So it was just telling myself, it's okay to go deeper into your character's mindset and explore their feelings, because a lot of the binding, it deals with mental health issues. So I can't write about mental health if I'm not willing to explore my own character's own deep emotions and mental health itself.
Yeah, I appreciated how you started the thread of dealing with Angelica's mental health, surviving an attack in the first book. She's survived it, and she's dealing with the PTSD. I mean, let's call it that, of and just wanting, but being committed to her job. I really loved how you wove that in. It made it feel more real to me. And I think we need to be talking about that more, because we're not talking about the effects that a lifetime of working in violence, of working in, in police work would have on a very human soul. And so seeing Henley wrestle with that, and seeing how it affects her interactions with her husband, with with her family, with her love triangle, with her child, wanting to lose herself in work, wanting to get back to it. I loved all of that. It made it more, even more interesting to me. So I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that was always an intention of mine from when I wrote the very first book. I always, because as a criminal solicitor, working in law, I have to learn to compartmentalize myself. I can't bring home the horrible cases that I deal with on a daily basis and bring it home. So I always thought to myself, well, how would a police officer, a detective, deal with that? Like, it must affect them, because they're dealing with it every single day, a case from beginning to end, whilst I get a case nicely packaged up and presented to me. So for me, it was always part of, the first book, and also this book is, how do these cases affect the detectives, and, how does it affect their home lives?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I have wondered if of course, everyone deserves an equal chance under the law. Everyone deserves to have their innocence protected, to have that their legal rights protected. But how would one who then has to advocate for that, but is also sometimes meeting really bad people who've done horrible things? How do you not take that home with you?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'd be lying if I said, you don't think about your cases, because you do, and not every client you meet is, the best, perfect, personable client. Some, people are people, when, we're made up of so many different things. And there's some clients, I would happily never see them again, because they were not nice people. I mean, they just weren't. But, I have a job to do, which is to represent them to the best of my ability. So that's what I do. But I said I still think you have to be a certain mindset to work in criminal law, because you have to be able to put things into boxes, and essentially put your own emotions and your own personal feelings into a box, and not basically don't open it again. And then once you finish the case, you just move on to the next one. That's the only way you could deal with it. Otherwise, you wouldn't last 6 months in crime if you weren't able to do that.
This is fascinating to get that inside glimpse into what it's like to be a criminal defense solicitor. Thank you for this insight. I just finished watching the series Anatomy of a Scandal, starring Michelle Dockery. So good. And I'm totally blanking on her, the one from the woman who plays in Bridgerton. But she was fantastic. And seeing the two women, the barristers, get up in court, and one is arguing for and one is arguing it. Oh, it was absolutely fascinating. But now I feel like I'm learning what it's really like from Nadine. I love this. Sharon says, you are a new author to me, so I love hearing about your books. Yes, Sharon, I'm so glad you said that. So here on Restoring Thriller Mavens, I love connecting to your favorite authors and introducing you to your next favorite author. So here she is, Nadine Matheson. So so definitely check out her book, and you can follow her on Twitter. I'm going to pop the link into the comments.
Yep.
So give her a follow over on Twitter and Instagram. Here's the links, and check out this detective. Check out her Henley series. I absolutely love it. And let's get back to some of the praise. I really loved this one, so I'm going to pop it up here.
Okay.
Yeah, Sara Hillary, author of Someone Else's Skin, says crime fiction has a significant new star. So congratulations on that, Nadine.
Thank you.
I think we're all enjoying the series. So now that you have 2 books out about Henley, how are you are you already thinking about or possibly working on book 3 in the Henley series? Are you thinking about how to keep developing her? Give us the scoop.
Yeah, I'm already working on book 3. I'm probably like 2/3 of the way through book 3. And I always find that the more I write about Henley, the more I get to, I learn more about her, and also Remuta as well, her partner. So the more I write about them, the more I learn about them. And I just keep thinking to myself, they have so many adventures to go on together, so many stories left to tell. So hopefully there'll be more. Well, there will be more after book 3.
So good point. It's not just about Henley. It is about her partner and all of the characters in the serial crimes unit, and getting to know them and their backstories. Are you having fun with continuing to develop them? Are you starting to get nervous, like, oh no, what if I run out of material? Or in terms of their backstories and also where they're going? What's it like to write a series? I've never written one. Anissa's saying, yay, book
3. Yay to book 3. Series are interesting because you write, I was writing the binding room and think, okay, I might be done. But then listen, you get to the end and, I've left them at a certain point and you just want to think to yourself, well, what happens next? Like their day just isn't over. Their life isn't over. So, the more I care about them, the more invested I am with them, the more of their stories that I want to write. And it's nice getting, being back with familiar characters, but also putting them into different situations and seeing how they respond to that. So that's what I like about writing a series. I have a world that I've built and I'm comfortable with that world, but I just want to see how Remuta and Henley respond when I kind of throw in lots of different obstacles.
Yeah, it's so interesting the way you just said that. Like, oh my gosh, if you didn't write them, you'd be almost leaving these people with this world that you built where they are. They'd just be stuck there. Like you have to keep going. You have to keep going because you have to keep bringing them along with you. What a fascinating idea. Exactly. I almost can hear them screaming, don't leave me behind, Nadine.
Well, when I was writing the binding room, I remember, I think I was like on chapter 3 or 4. It was the first time I'd introduced Remuta back. And I sat back and I went, oh, hello. Because it was nice to see him again.
Oh, I love that. Oh, hello. So, Alicia, who couldn't be with us live, she submitted, she would like to know, do you hear the voices? When you just said that, it reminded me, do you hear the voices of your characters? And if so, have they ever told you something that made you write the book in a different direction than what you were expecting?
It sounds odd, but I hear the dialogue. So when I hear Remuta and Henley talking to each other, or Henley talking to Plasha, I can hear their voices, and their voices are very distinct in my head. But there are times when I don't want Henley to do something, and I'm like, I don't think this is the right choice for her. And she'll say, no, I'm doing it anyway. So that's why she'll go off and do something, which really she shouldn't do. And if I was a good friend of hers, I'll say to her, no, don't do that. That's not wise. But yeah, it happens. I hear her.
So let me ask you this, Nadine. I just had this conversation with Kate White when I hosted her again for her new book, The Second Husband. Mm-hmm. If you are hearing these voices and you feel more like you're just writing down what's coming to you, where do you think that story is coming from? Where are these voices coming from? Where are these characters coming from? Where are these words, this dialogue, this story, this world? Where do you feel it's coming from?
I actually had this conversation a couple of months ago with a friend of mine. I don't know, because I did sit back and I'd written a whole scene for book 3, and it was probably like 3,000 words I'd written. And I sat back and I didn't actually have like a memory of actually writing it, if that makes sense. So I was wondering, like, where does it come from? You know, you talk about instinct, but I don't know, that creativity bulb in my head. You just wonder how it is able to create these stories, these scenarios, these obstacles for your characters. So I haven't quite figured it out yet. Maybe it's something. It's definitely something out there in the universe.
Yeah, because it's an interesting thing to consider. You know, where does that come from? And you know, a lot of people talk about being in sacred flow, or you know, being in flow and feeling like a conduit. I know I've had that experience, and even if you're not a writer, you can have that experience when you're cooking, when you're doing a sport, when you're running, if you like to run, which I don't, or if you're doing something you love, and you could just get in that, and you're just feeling like this sort of carried along moment. And I think it's really interesting to start to think about, if you do, when you, as a writer, if you're in that sacred flow, for lack of a better word, where is that coming from? Who are these people?
I feel like you're definitely channeling something. Something through you, because it's like when people you know, sometimes you can be driving and it's a familiar street, and you just don't know how you got to the end of the road, but you know you got to the end of the road, but you've got no cognitive memory of that. I think sometimes writing can be like that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like, we've all had that moment where you're like, wait, how did I even get here?
How did I get here?
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, I love this conversation, because I am so fascinated, because I'm thinking, if you can experience it, can you create a situation where you can then access it all the time, or do you just have to wait where it comes to you? I don't know.
I think no. Oh God, I wish I could access it all the time. I think it just comes to you. Because so, you know, it's like some days you can be sitting at your computer in front of your screen, and it's a struggle to get the words out. You might write 200 words for the day, and that's it. And then other days you're just flying through it, and you've moved on. Your story's moved on. It's developed, and you're like, oh, yes, I did it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I'm more in the struggle bus. Like, the struggle bus is very familiar to me. That 200 word, eking it out.
Yeah,
but
we've all been there.
Yeah, I'd like to get to the 3,000 word flow phase. Anytime it's ready to come. So Nadine, another review that I really loved was Leslie Cara, the Sunday Times bestselling author of The Rumor. She said this book is gruesomely good. So let's talk about gruesome. So Henley arrives, she finds this body tied down to a bed in a rectory. Does gruesome come easily to you? Does your editor either have to say, more gruesome, please, or are they ever like, too gruesome, Nadine? Like, too gruesome?
They want more. They always say, see, I always feel like I hold back. So the prologue of the binding room, all the responses I've got to the opening are like, oh my God, like, don't eat your lunch when you're reading the opening. but I remember thinking, like, I want it to be detailed. So like every piece of gruesomeness, there's a reason for it, but it's detailed. But there are moments when I'm reading it back, especially when I've been obviously listening to the audiobook for the first time, so hearing someone else speak my words, I was like, yeah, actually this is a bit gruesome and graphic, but it's not on every single page. There's a point to it.
So did you have to put your lunch aside? Were you one of those people?
Oh no, I can eat.
Okay. So when they have said, Nadine, we want more gruesome, did you have to go back and amp it up?
Yeah, I had to amp it up because I think I held back in the initial draft, and I said, you can push it a little bit more, and I was like, well, I'm thinking, well, how can I? And then I do find a way, and then I surprise myself. But then there's it's always like the little details, like I like I've got a scene with maggots falling from the ceiling.
Yeah, the maggots are tough. Even the word maggots are unpleasant. I like how you're describing, though, that your editor, asked for more gruesome, or your book challenged you to go into those more emotional places, because it sounds like it's not just been a journey for Henley, but a journey for Matheson as well.
Oh no, definitely. I think because we always talk about second book syndrome, so you always want your second book to be better than the first. So when you're writing a second book, who's in the back? I don't even call it the angel on your shoulder. You've got a devil on your shoulder saying to you, is it going to be as good? Is it going to be as good? So it's a matter of ignoring that voice, and just, as I said, just focusing on the story. And, you know, once you're invested in the story and you're invested in your characters, you can kind of ignore the devil on your shoulder. But also as well, I wrote The Binding Room. I started it before we went into a pandemic, and I kind of finished it whilst we were in lockdown. So all of that is a challenge in itself, because, you know, you wasn't able to do the things you normally did when you're writing a book, like take a break and go for lunch with friends, or, you know, go to the library and do some research. You couldn't do any of that. So that was hard. And a lot of people would say, this is perfect, you know, situation to write a book. And for me, I was like, this isn't perfect. I need to leave the house.
Right, exactly. Because sometimes, especially if you're writing gruesome and your editor's asking for more gruesome, that sounds like you would like to take a break and go for a walk.
You would like to take a break, because I think writing that world and writing the world I was talking about, it can be very claustrophobic, especially writing scenes when Henley finds a body, you know, a man's body in a hidden room. That in itself is a very tight and closed space. So sometimes you need to leave your room, and you couldn't really do that in lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it worked in your favor.
Maybe it probably did.
Anne, welcome to the conversation. She says, OMG, this is out tomorrow. I loved The Jigsaw Man. Yes, Anne, first of all, me too. I loved The Jigsaw Man. I love Nadine's writing. I love Henley. And it is out tomorrow, y'all. So I'm going to put the link in. It's out tomorrow in the US. It's already out in the UK, but it is out for us here in the US. It's out tomorrow, y'all. So here is the pre-order link. So click it. And the good folks at Murder by the Book will send you your copy of The Binding Room first thing tomorrow morning when this book drops. And trust me, you're going to want to get your hot little hands on it, because the pages fly by and it's so good. It's everything, and it's everything that we loved about the Jigsaw Man and more. And if you haven't read Nadine, like Sharon said, you're a new author to her. We love that too. Get your feet wet. Get your feet wet with this book, Sharon. Check it out. And tell us in the comments what you loved about the Jigsaw Man. I loved Henley as a character. I loved the interaction of the other people in the serial team. Let me know what you liked, though. Meanwhile, I'm going to click over here to yet another bit of praise for Nadine. There's so much. Let's see, where do I want to go? Oh my goodness. Let's see. Nina Patel said pacey and gripping. If you love Val McDermott and Fiona Cummins, then you'll love the Jigsaw Man. Sorry, that was for the last book. Fans of crime fiction will adore this book. Not for the faint of heart. Expertly plotted. And let's talk about plotting. Are you a plotter, Nadine, or are you a pantser? Are you a plunger? What's your process?
No, I'm definitely a plotter.
Okay, tell us about your plotting.
Well, I always do an outline before I put prologue, sentence one. I have an outline of what the story is going to be. But within that outline, I think I give it room for subplots to develop naturally. Because that's what happened with The Binding Room. I can't tell you about it because it's such a good spoiler. But there's a subplot in The Binding Room which I did not plan for. But for me, I said my outlines are just more a case. I call them safety nets. So just in case I do go completely off piste or get stuck somewhere, it's somewhere for me to come back to. But I've tried to do the pantsing thing and it doesn't work. I get to about 20,000 words and then Henley's stuck. She's just sitting at a table. Nowhere to go. So I like to have an outline. Yeah, she's sitting there.
Nadine is also sitting at a table, just sitting there.
Yeah. Everyone's just sitting at a table, and I realized, like, no, I need a plan. So I'll do an outline. It'll only be like a 2 or 3 sentence description of what the chapter is going to be about. But then sometimes you're finding that you're writing, and writing's a very organic thing, so you may just go off in a different direction. But eventually, I do go back towards the plan. But I definitely couldn't do it without one.
I love it. Anne says she loves Henley, but she also liked the twisty criminal. So props to you for Olivier there, Nadine, the twisty criminal, the twisty charming criminal.
Twisty and
Yay.
charming.
Yeah, and twisty charming twisty charming criminal makes a pops up again in the binding room. So there's something for everyone to enjoy. Oh my gosh, y'all, I can't believe it. We're out of time. It's time is flying when you're having fun. I blinked and this went by, but I want to remind you the book is out tomorrow here in the US, The Binding Room. So here again is the link. Yay! Oh, and while we're talking, let's talk about the cover really quickly. So people always want to hear about the cover. Did you get they want to know, did you get to choose it? Tell us the story.
Yes, I got sent like different concepts, and the first one they sent me with, because it's the bind room and it's got rope through it around it, and the first time I saw it, I was it was the first one, and I was like, yes, because I've been doing these hashtags on Twitter and Instagram, and I've put in the little rope emoji next to it, so so it all just worked out perfectly, and it says a lot. It's just, it makes a statement, so I'm very happy with it.
It really does say a lot. And I love that it was the first one that you didn't have to, you're like, you know, if you didn't get something and say, oh my God, not, you know, they could have been something with like a church on the front with a back, you know, then, or something where it's like, no, that's not it.
I didn't want anything cliched, so it's definitely not cliched.
I love, well, it says a lot, as you said. You guys, the book is out tomorrow. Here's the pre-order link. You can pre-order anywhere in the country. The good folks at Murder by the Book will ship it to you. If you're in Houston, you can swing by and pick it up. Anissa saying, thank you, ladies. Fascinating chat, as always.
Thank
Anissa,
you.
Thank you for being here and for all of your wonderful questions. Readers gotta read. Hey girl, good to see you pop up as always. She said, sorry I'm late. No worries at all. The replay will be up on Facebook and YouTube, so check it out. And she says she will be listening later. Yay, that's what they're here for. Wonderful. Well, Nadine, so wonderful to chat with you again. Congratulations on book number 2. And when Henley number 3 is out, you've got to come back and talk to us again. We've got to keep this tradition going.
I will definitely come back when Henley number 3 is out.
Yay. Well, happy pub day tomorrow. Happy US pub day tomorrow. Everybody be sure to follow Nadine on Twitter and Instagram. Here again is the link. So give her a follow. You want to stay up with her, all of her latest travel and adventures. She's funny and fabulous. So check it out. Give her a follow. Nadine, thank you so much. You are wonderful.
Thank you.
And happy US pub day.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.